Hi, my name is Marlene Whiteley. I'm working on a project for my children's literature class, and today we are going to be talking about three different books that show different kinds of diversity. My first book is Thank You, Mr. Falker, and this is written and illustrated by Patricia Polacco, and I would use this for third grade students primarily. One of the pages, this first page shows the little girl. Her name is Trista. She's getting ready to start school, and her grandfather, I've never seen this done before, but her grandfather is putting honey on the book, and he's asking her about honey, and she says that honey is sweet, and he said that knowledge is sweet, but then also knowledge is like the bee who makes the honey. You have to work for it in order to get it. And so the little girl is very excited about starting school. But she soon finds out that once she starts school that she has a little bit of problems learning to read. And so the book goes on to where she's in first grade and she's becoming frustrated because she realizes that she's kind of not like the other kids and she's having a hard time reading. And so it shows she's very frustrated. And then we get to the part that's really sweet in this book. This is where her and her grandmother are talking. They're laying in the grass one summer, and they're looking at the stars. And her grandmother is telling her that you have to hang on to the grass or you're going to end up on the other side of the stars. And right before this, they were talking about, her grandmother was telling her that she is kind of like the fireflies, that it's okay to be different because every one of the fireflies are different. So soon after this story, after this part of the book, the grandmother passes away. And then after the grandmother passes away, the grandfather passes away. And so the family moves to a new place. And so the little girl is thinking that she'll be able to learn to read and everything's going to be better. But she gets to the new school and she realizes that things are not better. She's still having a hard time reading. The kids are teasing her and being really, really hard on her. And so she's very frustrated. But she finds out that she's an incredible artist. She loves to draw, and so that's kind of her outlet. And so they have a new teacher that comes. His name is Mr. Falker, and he is not like the other teachers. He takes notice of her. He notices that she is a very good artist, and he doesn't notice yet that she has a reading problem because she hides it really well. We get to the part to where Eric is a bully in this book. And Eric torments poor Trisha. And so he finds her one day under the stairwell hiding. And you can see the emotions in this page. She's hiding under the stairwell, and then you have this mean little bully, Eric. And then here comes the hero running down the hallway, Mr. Falker. And he comes and rescues her. And that's when he finds out that she has a reading problem and that she's been hiding it. And so by the end of the story, they work and work and work and work until all of a sudden one day she realizes that she can read. And that's a huge thing for her because she's wanted it so bad. So at the end of the story, it ends with her having, she has her jar of honey in a book. And she's thinking about her grandparents while she looks at the night sky because she can finally learn to read, and that was so important. With this story, I think it's important for children to know that not everybody learns to read at the same time. Children learn to read at different times, and this particular child learned to read in 5th grade. Some kids learn in kindergarten, some kids learn in 1st grade. Every child is different, and so it just depends on that particular child. So that's something that's good for other kids to see, that you can have a hard time. Also, in this book, it shows that the other kids teased her, and so with this story, you could talk about and show them what teasing does to kids, and you can have a classroom discussion about that. Also, it touches a little bit on death because the grandmother and grandfather passed away. So the kids could talk about that too. The hands-on activity that I would use with this book, so this book is actually based off of the author's life herself and her struggle with dyslexia. while she was growing up. That is, I think, why she became like an incredible illustrator, because she writes and illustrates the majority of her own books. The hands-on activity I would use with this book is I would have students, first we would read the story, and then we would talk about people that have been in our lives that have influenced us in some way. If they haven't had a teacher to do that or a family member, I would have them think about a community member that has done something notable that has helped the community or something along those lines. And we would work on writing thank you letters to these people. And we would actually go through the writing process, and then we would have a final copy of a thank you letter, and then I would actually have the students either mail or deliver the thank you letter. And that is one way that you could use this book, is I think through the writing process and writing a thank you letter. Okay, the second book that I want to talk about is called Painted Dreams, and it's written by Karen Lynn Williams, and it's illustrated by Catherine Stock. And I would use this with second grade students. The pictures in this book are very pretty. It's about a little girl named Tia Marie, and she lives in a small village in Haiti. So the book starts off by showing the little girl painting and creating just with basic things that she's come across, because her family's very poor and they cannot afford any kind of real paints or paintbrushes. And so she stumbles, her and her sisters are doing chores one day, and they're walking down the road, and they come across the neighbor's house. And the neighbor's an artist, and this is his house. It's decorated with lots of color and designs, and she just admires it and is looking at it because she thinks it's so pretty. And she herself wants to be able to create things like this. And one day she comes across her neighbor actually painting on a canvas. And so that inspires her to want to become a painter, because she watches what he does and she sees his real paints and his real brushes. So she has to go to the market one day with her mother, because her family's income is through selling the vegetables that they raise at their house. And so they're at the market one day and they're trying to sell their produce, and they're not able to sell the produce. They're in the last stall and people are not wanting to come and see them. And so the mother's upset because they're not able to sell any of their vegetables. So they take home all the vegetables for the day. Well, the little girl discovers that behind them is moss on the wall, and whenever she removes the moss, she realizes that there's a white wall. And so that inspires her. So she goes and she collects the used little tubes of paint that the neighbor had thrown away and some other natural elements, and she creates a mural on the wall. So the next morning, there's a big stir in the marketplace. And so the mother and Tia Marie come and realize that everybody's admiring Tia Marie's artwork. And so they are able to sell all their vegetables that day. And people are admiring Tia Marie's work and about what kind of artist she can be. And then the neighbor even looks and sees it. And he says that she's very gifted. And at the end, it said that this is better than any dream she could have imagined for herself, because she really wants to be an artist. So with this book, you could do a country study on Haiti, because this book is actually depicting a small village in Haiti. You can also learn about art. I think this would be a wonderful story to share with kids if you were wanting to teach them about art and like the different paints and brushes that you can use, especially since we're talking about second grade children. They may not have had much experience with art. You can also talk about the market. Kids in our area where we live, they know about a grocery store, but they don't necessarily know about a farmer's market or a market. So you could really talk about that and talk about the different things that you will see at a marketplace. The hands-on activity that I thought would be good with this book would be for the students to actually get to experiment with the paints and paint brushes. And so at first, I thought it would be good for them to have just a piece of paper and they could just do some basic artwork with experimenting with mixing paints and painting, and then with the different sizes of paintbrushes. And then once they kind of decided what kind of mural they wanted to actually do, then on a larger piece of paper, they could actually paint a mural, kind of like what Tia Marie did in this story. And they could experiment with the different colors and the different paint brushes. So this one is Painted Dreams, and it's about a little girl in Haiti and how she was able to overcome the obstacles of poverty and limited resources to in order to have her dream come true. Okay, the last book that I'm going to share with you today is called Waiting for the Biblioboro. And this was written by Monica Brown, and it was illustrated by John Para. I hope I didn't that was awful. But anyway, I would use this book with kindergarten through 3rd grade children. It's a really cute book. On the front, you see what looks like a gentleman with the donkeys and the little girl. Okay, and the little girl is the main character. Her name is Anna. So in the story, we have a little girl, and it looks like this takes place in Mexico. And she loves books. Okay, she loves to read books. She has one book. And she had a really great teacher, but her teacher had to move away, and the village had not been able to replace her and get a new teacher. So the children are without a teacher, and she loves learning, and she loves books. So she's reading her book. And one day, a gentleman comes on a donkey, and the kids are so excited because they don't know who this person is. And he comes riding up on his donkeys with all these books, and he tells them that he is a librarian and that basically he has a moving library. And so he shares stories with the kids, and they are loving it. They're getting to look at books all day long, and he's reading them stories. Well, she gets to pick one book, and she's so excited because she loves books. And so it's a long time before he comes back, and she just can't wait because she loves stories so much. So he had told her before he left that if you just can't wait till I come back, then you can write your own story. And so that's what she does. She finally decides to write her own story. So when he comes back, she presents him with her book. She has created her own book, and he adds that to his collection, and so that other children can enjoy the book. With this story, children can learn about other cultures, and they can learn that libraries are not just in a building, that you can have books anywhere. Children can also talk about their favorite books. My hands-on activity would be, for kindergarten and 1st grade students, I would have the students draw pictures and create their own books, and then the teachers could help them write their stories. For 2nd and 3rd graders, I would actually have them draw their own picture and write their own book. This could be made into like a classroom book, or they can do this individually. And the teacher can either have it bound, or they can actually send it off and it can actually come back in like a hard book format, because kids love seeing their artwork turn into actual books. That's very exciting. So I hope that you've enjoyed learning about 3 different diverse books. One we have that takes place in Mexico. The other one we have took place in Haiti with limited resources, but she was able to overcome great obstacles. And then our last one today dealt with dyslexia and how the actual author herself was able to overcome and learn to read by a very nice, thoughtful teacher. Thank you. Bye.